My name is Suzanne McCall. I'm an EMDR trained psychotherapist, and I work in Connecticut, but I also have a business where I do teletherapy EMDR with people in New York, Connecticut, and Florida. So I'm going to be doing the presentation without a moderator. So I'm going to try to kind of keep an eye on the chats, but that may not be so easy for me to do. So the best thing, I will try to keep an eye on them, but I may not be able to answer things until the end of the session. So if you have specific questions you want to ask, the best thing would be to put it in the Q&A, and I will try to go over them all at the end of the session. So today, somebody asked me, Catherine asked me to do this remote EMDR presentation, and I was really excited about that because it's something that I'm really passionate about doing, because I find it so transformative for people, and I'm really excited that we're able to do it via remotely and teletherapy. I was doing completely in-person therapy in a group. I own a group practice in Connecticut, and didn't even think about doing teletherapy until a year ago, as probably everybody here, and then had to pivot to do fully online. So that for the last year, that's what I've been doing, and I'm really liking doing that a lot. So, and I think it is able to reach more people. I think especially in the rural areas and the mid-Atlantic areas, maybe it's a really great thing for people, especially. So please feel free to put anything in the chat, any questions, and I have some poll questions which we asked everybody to fill out, and I think everyone did, that we can review. So that will determine how much talking I'm going to do in the beginning versus getting started with the video. So we'll get into that. So if you, Charles, if you want to just advance the slide. Okay, so we'll go right into the questions. Are you a mental health professional? Okay, so 56% of the people that responded said yes, they are. Okay, so that's 44% that are not. That's interesting. If you want to put it in the chat, what you do, that would be kind of interesting, or what field you're in. So what is the next slide? Do you provide psychotherapy services? 56%. That makes sense. Okay, next slide. Are you considering? 56% are considering using it. 44 not. Okay. All right. Next slide. Please rate your overall experience with telehealth. 1 star being terrible, 5 being fantastic. 78% of people say pretty good. All right. That's my experience also. So 78% say pretty good or better. So that's great. All right. Next, what have been your biggest challenges? All right, that's technology is 25%. A little bit clinical. Attendance, 19, and billing and reimbursement. Okay. Well, I think, here in Connecticut, those are the same problems we're having. Technology, especially I don't know how many people have been doing teletherapy here for a really long time, but I've only been doing it for a year. Okay, yeah, right. So today, I'm going to kind of do a little bit about eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. I'm not going to go very much in depth about it because I really want to just specifically talk about the remote EMDR and what the specific issues or differences are for teletherapy and EMDR. And then we have a session that I recorded, and we can talk more about please put your questions and answers in after. Of course, a session for us anyway up here is usually about 50 to 60 minutes. So we had to really condense this. I could only get it down to 20 minutes. I hope that's okay. But I think that this person is a very, interesting person to watch. I think you're going to enjoy watching it from a mental health perspective and seeing what what EMDR is about. So if the 40% of people that don't know what EMDR is, you'll get a good idea here. And then the other people will see just somebody else doing EMDR, and please feel free to ask any questions that you have about it. So Charles, you can go forward. So why do we do EMDR? The purpose of EMDR is to really work with trauma that brings with it all sorts of disturbing feelings, and interferes in a person's present life. We don't go back and do work with people if it's not interfering, if they're all happy. And not all trauma causes problems like PTSD and problems in a person's life. If they process it in a good way or a healthy way when it happens, that's it. Our bodies know how to handle. We are, genetically prepared to manage trauma and to heal from it. But societally, culturally, all sorts of things happen that cause us to have difficulty doing that. So, another reason why now it's a perfect time is because of all the trauma that we are having with the pandemic, the global unrest of everything right now. And I'm not going to go into talking about that. So you can go forward, Charles. So what do we do with EMDR? We start with the here and now. We go back to the past, look at the past memories and traumas that are affecting us in the here and now. We resolve those, and it allows, and then we move toward the future in our mind in terms of processing and therapy, and help people have skills and perspectives and better ways of processing that allow them to be able to handle future events that are happening in their lives. So, okay, forward, next slide. So there's 8 phases of treatment with EMDR. What I like about EMDR is it's a protocol treatment, evidence-based, lots of research on it, and you can follow the protocol very closely. But as a therapist, you also use your other skills that you have and other kinds of therapy training that you have. I do a lot attachment work, and I do what's called imaginal nurturing, imaginal rescues. That's kind of something we do with EMDR, but it's not really an EMDR concept. And that's something that I will be doing in this session today. So there's history and treatment planning, just like any kind of regular therapy. Preparation is kind of looking at what the person's skills are, what their coping skills are, to be able to manage distressing feelings, to be able to manage the process. Assessment, looking at what the actual target traumas are. And the bulk of the work is desensitization, where we do processing and resolving the trauma that's still there, residual trauma from past traumas, emotional distress. And installation is the fifth phase, which you'll see me also kind of working on that a little bit in this session, because it's really our way of enhancing the positive, more adaptive perspectives the person naturally starts to have in the EMDR process. It's very exciting and very just as important as getting rid of and resolving the traumas. Body scan is the 6th phase, and the purpose for this is the belief that everything that happens to us is held in our body somewhere, and if it's unresolved on a body level, then we have to keep processing. And that's why so many people will be in therapy for years and still have that trauma reaction and get triggered. And that's because they didn't resolve it necessarily from a body level. And that's what's really great about EMDR. So closure and reevaluation, it sort of happens at the end of every session, as well as when you first come back for the next session. Like how have things been? How are things going? What do we maybe need to work on today? That kind of stuff. Or are we done? Okay, so next slide. I think, so EMDR works on neural pathways, changing neural pathways, developing more positive ones, resolving past traumas, making new connections in the brain, and preparing more successful, pre-paving more successful beliefs. There's a couple typos in here, just so you know. I'm sorry. Just the way it is. I think that's kind of enough about what EMDR is. Okay, so you can go to the next slide, Charles. Okay, how it works. We look at the negative beliefs. We look at the beliefs, the cognitions, the memories, the images that go along with the memories, the emotions that come up, and where you feel it in your body. And we do bilateral stimulation, which helps to increase the body's adaptive information processing system so that you're able to bring up old traumas, those memories, feelings, body sensations, everything just come right back up. And by using the bilateral stimulation, we are able to tap into the prefrontal cortex, the more adult functional processing system, to go back and reprocess, review, and re-understand the things that happened in the past so that they're no longer emotionally felt or physically felt. And that helps to put them back into perspective, like something that happened a long time ago, it wasn't good, but I'm okay now. And we really help people with developing the more positive beliefs about themselves and about their abilities. So we can move forward to the next slide. Okay, so everybody, I think probably a lot of people are doing remote work of some sort, but some of the general remote therapy considerations that we have to keep at the forefront of our mind are discussing strategies for poor connectivity. I'm just hoping that I have good connectivity today. If this breaks down today, I'm going to re-sign back up with you. If that doesn't work, we'll go to FaceTime. If they don't have FaceTime, we can, use Doxy or another system, or just call and on the phone and finish the session. These are just things that we have to do. We don't have a choice. But it's good to have a game plan with the client. Ensure that you have an adequate visual of the client and yourself for the client, so that they can feel like they're right there with you and that you can see them. Because especially with EMDR, in all kinds of therapy, we like to be able to look at the body language and see what's going on, especially the person's face. Because we don't have as much in-person nonverbal communication ability. HIPAA is the typo in here. HIPAA compliant platforms right now in Connecticut, probably most of the country, those regulations are waived, but in general, it's good to have the HIPAA compliant platforms. So this is the other typo. Somehow my person put these twice in here. Okay, we're done with that. We can move forward to the next slide. Okay, specifically, things to think about that when you're doing EMDR remotely. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the different phases quickly. Phase 1, history and treatment planning. You have a good visual screen and you basically are asking the client questions, and you might be giving them forms to fill out remotely. You can share your screen, whatever you want to do. It's really the same as in-person therapy, and that's exactly the same, except for you're using teletherapy. Okay, next slide. Preparation. A big part of EMDR therapy is the preparation phase. And this is something that, you do this in the beginning of your treatment with the client, but then you sprinkle it throughout your entire session, your entire treatment with them. Okay, so we're constantly trying to figure out what is it that the client doesn't have, what kind of an internal resource, coping skills, what is it that they don't have, and helping them to gain those. So one of the things that we do is something called a calm place. visualization, and that's what we call a resource. It's resourcing. And we use something called the butterfly hug to be able to enhance the person's experience of it, positive feelings. So with bilateral stimulation with EMDR, you want to go quickly. Let's just say, so what I often do is I do tapping with my clients like this in person. For remote. So when I'm processing disturbing memories, I tap and I have them tap at the same pace, nice and quickly. When we're doing resourcing, and if you try that yourself right now, if you do it really fast, you'll see that there's a sense of like, I don't know, agitation that happens. Okay. So that's bringing stuff up. When we do it with the preparation phase, we would have them close their eyes, go nice and slow. We call this the butterfly hug. It's good for all different ages. Really slow. And what the complex visualization is using all of a person's senses to imagine being somewhere where they're very peaceful and calm and relaxed. The idea is to try to help people be able to self-soothe. So you don't really want them to have other people with them in this visualization. Of course, that happens sometimes, but so you might ask them to imagine being anywhere in the world where they would feel calm and relaxed and peaceful, and you would talk nice and peaceful and calm, and have them visualize it, sense the temperature. Is there wind? What does it look like? If it's a beach, what does the water look like in the sky? All of that stuff. You visualize it because your brain doesn't know the difference between what you're visualizing and what's actually happening. So that's the preparation phase, is doing those kinds of things. A support circle, installing a support circle for them, having them identify a few people in their life who let them know that they are loved and that they are worthy. And you have them kind of imagine each one of them there. And as you're doing each little dialogue with those people, you have them do the butterfly hug slowly, and that helps to enhance the positive sensation. And then what I do is I tell them anytime they're in distress, when they're not here, they can imagine those support people with them, all of them, one of them. And I also have them use that as a resource when they're doing the processing. So that if they are having a really hard time, I might say, would it be helpful to have somebody from your support circle here? And just imagine them sitting here next to you, and then, going on from there. Grounding's a little different. You might sometimes in person, you might throw a ball back and forth just to get people back in the here and now in their body. So you just do, breathing techniques, having them listen to sounds that might be around them, walk around the room, just take a minute and do that. Have a blanket or something with them just to have them become more aware of their present here and now self, sniffing something that might be bringing them back to the here and now. And this is something we do when people are dissociated. So, okay. So that's the preparation phase. The next phase is assessment, where we gather target memories. So, a person maybe knows what all their target memories are. The target memories are specific traumas that happen. And we usually do a timeline and have people list them out chronologically. And that's how we decide what we're going to work on in therapy. And that we do that the same as if we were doing it in person. Okay, next, desensitization. This is where the biggest difference is, and I think anybody who's doing EMDR already, this is where we go back, we look at all the different memories, and we set up the scenario in their mind where, what is it? You'll see me do this in the session. What's the memory? What's the image that goes with that memory? What is your negative thought about yourself? The negative thoughts about yourself they are 4 different domains. One is about worth, your self-worth. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I'm damaged. It could be anything. Responsibility. I should have known better. Sense of control, like feeling powerless or helpless. and I think power. I think actually power is the fourth one. So those are the four negative types of negative domains of the negative beliefs. So we have the image, the negative belief about themselves, the emotional experience they're having right in the here and now, and where do they feel it in their body. And then we tell them to like imagine that they're just sort of watching a scene, whatever comes up, because when you start processing, this is what we call reprocessing, anything can come up that's associated with that target memory. It could be anything that was happening at the time. It could be anything about the here and now. All sorts of things get stored in that one memory. And the further back it is, the more we call it like a snapshot, the more other things have already been put into that memory. So that's when we do bilateral stimulation while they're thinking about it or processing it. So we'll go into that next. We start and stop. So we do that for about 30 seconds, the processing, and then we start and stop and ask them what they got. So the different kinds of bilateral stimulation that we have access to, basically you can do almost all of these via teletherapy. So repetitive bilateral eye movements. So with teletherapy, in general, what you do is you sit here and the client's facing you, and you move your hands back and forth, and they watch your hands go back and forth while they're thinking about all those memories that we talked about, and just there's like a stream of things going through their mind while their focus is on the bilateral stimulation and following my hands. There's also like a device you can use to have them follow it. And there's light bars. So light bars where a light will go across the screen back and forth. And in general, you have that in the room. Bilateral sounds, you could put headphones on. David Grand has really good bilateral sounds that, come one side of the head, the brain, to the other on a regular basis. Tapping on the body. So sometimes if a client is, I think they all work. It's just a matter of what the client likes best. And then again, if you're getting stuck and things aren't progressing, you might switch to a different kind of bilateral stimulation. So they all work. I know I've done EMDR myself as a client. I did not like doing the eye movements. I found it really annoying. I did do the regular eye movements with the light bar, but most of my clients like tapping. So in person, I have a tapper, and it pulses left, right, and I'm in charge of holding it and turning it on and off in the speed. And that's what most of my clients use, and it works really well. They all work really well. So, okay, so next slide. So remotely, there are remote light bars. There's EMDR Remote, I think it's called, is a program you can get that there's a light bar going back and forth. I don't use it because I find it cumbersome and it technologically too many things to do while I'm working with the client, but it's there and some people do like it. So you can do the hand move, the fingers, just your hands when you're doing teletherapy. But what is recommended is that you put yourself out of the screen and you have the client just follow your hands back and forth. And you try to go quickly. Because you don't want the client looking directly at you while they're doing the bilateral stimulation. So what you're going to see in this session is a client focusing on two spots on opposite sides of his monitor, moving his eyes back and forth. Like I've got two windows, I could look back and forth at my two windows. They can put sticky notes up on the wall, one in each spot that they're going to move their eyes back and forth to. And when they decide they want to do that, what I do is I do tapping to try to get them to move with their eyes at a nice, quick pace. And it also helps with a sense of connection for the client, that, to sort of reminding them that I'm here with them doing this. Or I tap on my legs like that. Sometimes a lot of my clients are therapists, so and they know how to they do EMDR even. So they're really good. I sometimes, some of my clients say, don't do anything. I'm just going to tap and you can tell me when to stop and start. Or some of them just want to stop and start when they want, so it's very varied. But in general, you want to be in charge of the pace. You want to go as quickly as you can. And then when you stop, you just ask them to take a deep breath and let it go and come back to the room. So the bilateral eye movements are very doable with teletherapy. Okay, so next slide. So tapping on the body. So what a lot of my clients do is they do tapping. Most of my clients do this. They tap the same way that I'm tapping, and we go at the same pace. And sometimes they look at me, but most of the time they close their eyes. I find that sometimes when they look at me, it's more that they're checking in. They're wanting a connection, and they kind of go in and out with their looking at me and looking at their memories. Or, I say looking at their memories. I tell people, and this is what we're trained to talk about, is it's like you're watching a movie. You could almost imagine sitting in a movie theater, watching a movie, and you're not really sure what's going to happen. Maybe you've read the book, but the movie's different. So you just let whatever comes up come up. And so you sit back and you watch the movie. So you just kind of have them watch what comes up, and they most of the time close their eyes. Sometimes what you can do is you can link your thumbs, and then it's just a little closer. And this is just different variations that people use to be able to do it. I only have I think one client that likes to do it this way. And I think she does it because it's got a very nurturing feeling when you do it. You should try these different things and see what you think works for you. Oh, I was just going to move my slide. If you want, you can move the slide. Okay, so installation. Installation is, when a client is doing processing and I say, okay, what did you get? And they say, I just realized that it really wasn't my fault at all. I say, okay, let's go with that and think about that and just let them think about it. That's installing a positive thought and feeling. And that's sort of like a beginning. And they may say more thoughts that were positive, and they might say, oh, it's very common. People start to say, my chest felt full. It's like a whole different feeling. It's like they're becoming more embodied. And I say, okay, let's go with that. Okay, go with that feeling. Notice how it feels. Yeah, feel that. And they feel that. And when we're doing this, you still move at the same pace with the tapping. It's kind of a common question that people have when you're trying to install something positive. Do you go as quick? But yeah, you do. And so, it's emotional installation of positive feelings. They might say, oh, it makes me just feel so happy to feel that way. And so you say, okay, let's go with that. And what I didn't say was, in the very beginning of the therapy, we ask people to rate on a scale of 0 to 10 how distressing the memory is. So 10 is the most distressing when they think about it. 0 is not at all. And so throughout the session, after processing, I might come back to the memory and say, so what level of distress is it for you now when you think about it? And the way you know that EMDR is working is that the level of distress goes down. Sometimes it's off the charts in the beginning and it goes down to over a 10 down to a 5 within a session. So that's how we know when it's working. And that's how we know when to start thinking about the future. So we say, okay, imagine you saw that person that, abused you walk by you. What does that feel like when you think about it? Where do you feel it in your body? And that's when we start processing from the future template. So we ask them to think about it and do processing, tapping, bilateral stimulation, whichever way you're doing it. And that will allow that natural process also to take over and be able to come to a healthier resolution, so that I have clients. Big thing is people breaking up with somebody who, and like as like a narcissistic boyfriend or husband or wife, and having such a hard time resolving that relational trauma. And so I'll imagine having them imagine at this point what it would feel like if you saw them, or when they're coming to pick up your daughter, because they're still part of your life. Yeah, I don't want to talk too long. Okay, let's go to the next slide. This is a client who is, actually, he's not my client. He is a colleague, yeah, just don't start it yet. He's about 30 years old, and he's actually from rural North Carolina. And he lives up here, and he volunteered so kindly to do EMDR with me as a sessions. I did 2 sessions with him. This is only one. His trauma relates to what we're working on here is relational trauma. I think he had trauma with his father, but he is transgender. He's a transgender male, and he's totally finished with all the transitions. But what we're working on is sort of stuff that's happening in the here and now, but you'll see that it's very much related to the past, and the traumas that happened as a result of that whole process he went through. So I'm just going to let this go so you can see what happens here. Okay. All right. We can talk about it.
Just before we get started, I usually will be asking people where they are. I can see where you are. You're home. Yeah. So I have to know where you are.
I'm home with my cat.
Oh, home with your cat. Okay, good. Maybe the cat will make an appearance again today.
Definitely will.
So the last time we did this session, we were working on recording your radio show, mm-hmm. and how stressful that was. So how is it feeling now? And, what do you think we should start with?
Well, when I did it the last 2 weeks, that's what I noticed. Of course, I was a little nervous, right? But I noticed I wasn't as viscerally charged. Like I didn't have as much anxiety. Literally, I feel like sometimes I couldn't speak. So yeah, I feel like the session that we had, that's the big thing I noticed, is that a lot of that visceral anxiety was gone. But it's really anytime I'm sharing, honestly, like if I'm sharing on my website or creating anything I'm sharing to the public, could be in the social media. And after our last session, I've shared more than I've ever had, though, honestly, without that avoidance or because pretty much I avoid it basically. But if I'm not avoiding it, my heart rate increases, like social media, my radio show, website, for example, at work, or if I'm talking to a group of people, it's groups, or yeah, that's what it is more so.
I think it sounds like there's still more to work on here.
It's just like an anxiety. It's a really body.
You feel it. Where do you feel it in your body?
Here, definitely. My heart rate always goes up. And also sometimes, and I'm sweating too. I'll sweat, my heart rate goes up. Sometimes restlessness, but really here.
Okay, so in your chest and.
Yeah, it's almost like I want to feel more assertive and confident, reassured, secure in myself and what I'm offering to the world. Because I have part of me feels stupid and also bad, it's bad, it's dumb, bad, it's irrelevant. I don't matter. I think it's the I don't matter piece.
I don't matter. I'm stupid. I don't matter.
But I want to be able to feel like what I have to share is important, and also my opinion is valuable, and my voice is valuable.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you think about putting yourself out there with the videos or the emails or social media about, about Trans Forward, or how
Right.
setting is it on a scale of 0 to 10 when you see yourself doing that?
Like a 7.
Okay. Okay. And so today you want to do the eye movements again, and you're going to just, you're going to look at 2 spots on the opposite sides of your screen.
Yeah.
And go back and forth.
Last time. Is this okay?
Yeah, that's fine. It's
Okay.
very, horizontal. Looks like a good range. And if for any reason we get cut off, we'll sign back up again. I don't think we will. Our connection seems fine.
Mm-hmm.
Or we could always go to FaceTime if we had to. Okay. I think we'll be fine. Okay, so I want you to just kind of come up with that image and of putting yourself out there about something related to, Trans Forward or body dysphoria.
Let me think about a moment.
Coming up with that image that represents it.
Okay.
Okay. And notice the feeling in your body. Notice the negative belief about yourself. I'm smart. I'm not smart. I don't matter. And any emotion that comes up. Okay. And then I'm just going to tap, and you can try to move your eyes back and forth in a nice, quick pace. Just let whatever comes to you come to you. There's no right or wrong.
My legs were twitching more, my heart rate. And then I just had this experience of people laughing at me.
Okay. Let's go with that. That feeling of people laughing at you. Yeah. Okay, take a deep breath and let it go.
This memory popped up of me in 5th grade. I think I was the narrator for the Christmas story. And I remember that this kind of relates to the gender stuff because I was wearing this new outfit that my grandmother got me, but it was like a very feminine-ish outfit. Because before that, honestly, I was very masculine, really. I just wore a lot of basketball clothes. And then my grandmother, 5th grade, got me this very feminine, and she's like sparkling gold pants with like bulldog shirt. But I remember being on stage and people laughing. It's crazy.
Okay, let's go with that. That's okay. A long time ago. Let yourself feel whatever that is. Okay, take a deep breath and let it go.
Yeah, I don't know. My mind was racing through like 5th grade. I remember my two best friends that were girls. I don't know. I feel like in that year, that's the year I started to feel really different, like ostracized in some way. And I think part of that was my gender presentation. But yeah, my mind was just kind of going through my elementary schools. Yeah.
Let's just go to that feeling of feeling ostracized that started to happen. Okay, take a deep breath and let it go.
Just some memories of like 6th grade came up. That feeling of ostracized. Yeah, it was like it's just like here. My breath is getting heavy. Like lonely, I guess is the word, lonely. I went to like basketball in middle school. I think in middle school, that's when I started to feel with basketball really started to go negative. Like kind of like we were talking about last session with my dad. I feel like I started to be really insecure about my performance and like very similar to like we did a couple weeks ago, just like
basketball, because your father was playing basketball with you also.
Yeah, and I felt like all eyes on me, but I was like failing. Like had so much anxiety playing,
Okay.
Well, I was thinking about my 11-year-old self. Came up again from last week, and because it's interesting when you say Katie, I feel like so disconnected from that because it's like I don't identify with it at all. So it's hard. So when you said that, but it was interesting to feel like how I felt then, like being identified in that way, and also, but just then also how like, it was me. I mean, it's me no matter what. Like that's the point, my name, even though I was going by that name at the time, like I'm still myself. And so it felt like a connection, kind of like with my 11-year-old self that came up last week.
Yeah.
Because it feels like almost genderless, And it's interesting too, I actually didn't even go by Katie. I went by KT.
All right. So let's just go with that. Those thoughts about how your gender, how hard it was to identify with it and everything that comes up when you think about 11, 12. Okay. Take a deep breath and let it go.
Yeah, I think when middle school was when I really started to feel really different. But I think because it was like puberty, it's just like, because when I hit puberty, the world treats you differently based on your body. So yeah, that's when I really felt, because honestly, like I have so many blocked memories during that time. Like I literally, like, what did I do? I just, like, I remember some moments being in the lunch. I mean, and that's the thing too. I had a bunch of friends, but it almost felt like I was still so within, internal. But I didn't have language.
You didn't have the language, did you say?
Yeah, for anything. I was, especially performance anxiety, but much less my gender, identity. Yeah, the performance. And that's the crazy thing. I didn't realize I had anxiety, for that. I knew my dad was a lot of pressure, but it's funny that I blamed like my body, like I thought I had IBS, or like I was always not like this visceral, it was like medical, but no one ever gave me, educated me on mental health or what this could be. / I was with my dad a lot, so it's just sad it just makes me sad, and also just how much pain, and just for my younger self, it's just
you went through a lot. All right, let's just go with that that sadness and how much you went through, that some could have been prevented. Maybe you could imagine going back there and talking to your younger self to help you understand what you were going through. Okay, take a deep breath and let it go.
Well, it's funny, I saw myself as Stefan, me running on my football field at high school, my high school. And that felt good. Yeah. So.
All right, let's just go with that. Yeah, who you are today.
That same feeling 2 weeks ago where it was like feeling full. That same feeling, because I saw myself like walking around the football game and like with the other girls, which were my friends at the time. Looking back, I had crushes on them. I don't have language for that either.
It makes sense though.
But I was with them, and then I pictured myself coming out of we used to come out of the locker room. And, all the people look at you when you come out of the locker room before the basketball game, but I picture myself on the guys team because I didn't get to play on the guys team,
This time you did, in your mind.
Yeah, I was playing. Exactly. Because,
Let's go back to that again. You as who you are today, going back and living that life, that high school life as who you are.
I was laughing because there's this memory when I was in the hallways, and me and my best friend Kelly, actually dressed such a controversial thing now too, for gender blender. You know how high school you do the what's it called? Like the different days of the week where you dress up, like pajama day.
Yeah.
What week? Yeah. So Spirit Week, there's Gender Blender, which do people even do that anymore? That was like 15 years ago. But anyways. So the girls got to dress up as boys. And looking back, it's crazy. But I grew up in rural North Carolina, so anything goes. Really binary. So boys dress up the girls, girls the boys, and whatever. And me and my friend Kelly, I had this memory come up of us dressed. I wore my dad's clothes, and it was like probably the only day that I really felt like self-expressed, like pretending to be a boy.
Yeah.
Like,
let's just go with that. That's a good memory.
I saw myself in one of my classrooms as me today. It's, like a younger version of me, but and I was just like, I would feel so much more confident. I was just realizing how insecure I felt just because I wasn't in my body, like wasn't self-expressed. And just realizing how that was a huge factor in my like feeling stupid, like so insecure about sharing in class or like the work I was doing. Because the truth is I really worked really hard. Like I was really self-disciplined to do my homework. I mean, thank goodness that my education got me out, but just realizing like if I were Stefan, like me today, like how much that would have been, that was a huge block. And I didn't really make a connection until, I mean, again, I kind of like knew it, I guess, but I never have felt that connection before.
So that feeling of being that stupid or awkward.
Being how me as Stefan now back there, I don't feel that way in class.
Yeah. All right. So let's go with that idea. And that, you really weren't stupid and things just were not settled for you.
Well, my breath definitely has slowed down. And yeah, I feel really connected to high school. I mean, like
in a different way.
Yeah. In a new way, yeah.
In a new way.
Not in this like, small, lonely, insecure way. Yeah, it feels very different. Like I feel like I'm myself,
All right, let's just go with that feeling of this new sense of yourself that you've just created. And let's just imagine taking that high school you up here again into your studio and your office and having him be part of all your posting ideas. And notice how that feels.
Yeah, I was just on the basketball court holding my little sister. Just feeling the difference of being me, Stefan, versus like my brain's not even going to how I used to present. You're like that. That feeling, that moment.
Yeah.
Internal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So when you think about posting social media now, let's go to that again. Coming back to the 2021. How does it feel now when you think about it? It's like sort of picture it, and on a scale of 0 to 10, how distressing does it feel when you think about doing it?
Like a 3.
Okay.
3 to 4, depending on like the, context. But yeah, I would say a 3, 4, because I feel like more myself. Like I feel like now I'm realizing that emotional state is such an old, I mean, I've known it, like I said, but I guess I've never connected it to, well, that elementary school, that feeling so small, that my gender,
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's telling.
So let's just think about this idea of this posting again and social media posting about Trans Forward, and just notice what comes up.
I was thinking like why it's so important for me to share too is for like people like me. And I've said this kind of like last week, but it's coming together again with just like, people who are in rural North Carolina, other trans kids need people like me to reach out. And because I wish I had a me.
All right, let's go with that. It's like my voice matters. It's important.
I think a lot of what drives my own work too is being able to give folks what I didn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, well, I think help people find healing. Like
yeah.
I'm able to find, but also, and acceptance for being trans, because it took me a long time.
Mhm.
And that's important, but also kids,
Yeah.
kids or adults too that don't have language or don't. It's so important to me, and I think because I just want to give people what I didn't have. So that's what I think. That's
All right, let's go with that. That's such a powerful gift.
Charles, can you stop the video now?
I was thinking, I have a client who actually just turned 13. He's going to start hormone treatment Tuesday. Actually, it's been a big deal because he's really wanted it, and I've been with him for almost 2 years. But I was thinking about when you said proud, because I've been his mentor. You're not mentor.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Charles. I just wanted to, it's only a few more minutes. But if we don't have that much time, and I just wanted to give people time to make comments or questions if they have them. What you're just missing is just kind of finishing up, and I did a quick demonstration of the calm place, which is what we do at the end of every session. We do some kind of stabilization exercise, although he was pretty stable and feeling really good by the time he was done. And I also wanted to just say, he started out at a 7 level of distress. I don't think I showed that in the beginning, and it was down to a 3. And I just talked to him last night, and that was like a couple of weeks ago. And he said it's like a 0 or a 1 now, and that he's just feels like a different person just from doing those 2 sessions. It was pretty powerful for him. So I just wanted to give people a chance for comments. Thank you, Carolyn. And any questions if they have them. Yeah, thank you, Justin. Yeah, I mean, EMDR remotely is totally doable. And Dr. Neufeld asked me what I thought about that, and he said, I think he was saying he's heard a lot of people say that they thought it would be too difficult, and it's really more about the therapist and how ready and willing they are to tackle it with the technology. And also, if we have our own stuff going on and we don't take care of our issues, then we may want to avoid working in that deeper way, like with the EMDR. And so we might sometimes say it's really the technology, or we'd rather do it in person, but that it's really, really effective. So of course, we all have to work on our own self-care in order to be there and be able to show up for the hard stuff. But he did great with his EMDR. So I don't know if there's any questions and answers. It doesn't look like there are. If anybody has a question, doesn't look like anybody does. So if anybody wants to, I'm just going to type in my email.
There's a couple of questions popping up in the chat.
Oh, there are?
Yep.
In the chat.
Justin.
At the end.
I have a question about
I have a question about how you are able to see clients across multiple states, and if you're going to have any issues going forward post-COVID. No, I have gone through the whole process of getting my license in New York State. So I have an actual physical license. So at first, it was very unclear with their executive orders whether mental health counselors, is what we're called in New York, were able to do it during COVID. And so I just continued the process of getting my license. In Florida, it's very easy to get a teletherapy license. I don't have a license to practice on the ground, but I'm fine doing teletherapy, and that's the teletherapy business. So I will be able to continue going forward. I don't think it's a temporary thing. And I've been doing, Carolyn wanted to know how long it took for me to get to where I am with EMDR. The good thing about EMDR is that you follow the protocol and it really does work. So almost right from the beginning when you start doing it, you're going to see results with people. You just keep having to take more trainings. I think I've been doing EMDR for about 8 years maybe. And so and the more you practice it, the more you do trainings, the better you just get at it. I've been a therapist for many years. And so I took, when you first start study EMDR, like any kind of technique, you want to follow the protocol exactly. And so you almost abandon your other knowledge, but then you kind of realize, ooh, I got to use my knowledge. I got to use all that stuff that I know already. And then you learn how to integrate it. So, 8 years I've been doing EMDR, but the more you take more courses and learn and read and do supervision groups, you just keep getting better at it. And it's really a transformational kind of therapy. So I highly recommend it. And especially now, post-COVID, there's going to be a ton of people with trauma. And there have been all along this whole year. So people would come in and they'd have trauma about what's happening, and it would trigger their old traumas. So with EMDR, you work on separating it out and helping them learn and look at what they have control over in their life right now. And it reduces the level of anxiety and distress that they're going through in terms of like COVID or the elections or whatever it is people are really feeling stress about. So I'm just giving you my my email address. I'm trying to type it in right. So if anybody has questions that they think about, feel free to shoot me an email. I don't have any, as far as I know, I don't have anybody else's contact. Oh, we have a question here. Is reimbursement an issue with insurance providers as compared to in-person visits? Right now, in Connecticut, there's parity with teletherapy and in person. So it's all the same reimbursement. That's a big question about whether that's going to continue and go back to the way it used to be. And that could be a real issue because obviously in the past, before COVID, teletherapy reimbursement rate was much, much lower. And it would have been made it really hard to do as a therapist because as we know, insurance reimbursement is not very good, even in person. So I think there's a lot of pressure on the insurance companies to keep parity with teletherapy and in person. So we're hoping that that's going to continue. Yeah, I hope it remains the same for everybody. So
I did see a question. Annetta Williams asked, how much time do you allot for each EMDR session?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I missed that. So I usually give an hour for each session. I have done like hour and a half, 2-hour sessions with people when they're, if they really want to keep working, it's very effective. A lot of people feel that that's the wave of the future with EMDR, like doing longer, more intensive work because you can get done more within one session with people. But and at least an hour is what I do. Rarely less. We may not process the whole time. We might be doing it. People often will do regular therapy within the EMDR session also, like, so they might start that way, we just talk, and then we do the EMDR, and then we do more talk. So it really just is very individual. I have people that come in, they want to do EMDR, that's what we do, and then they leave. The whole idea is the difference with EMDR and other therapy is you don't have to know everything that goes on inside of a person. And I'm more of the guide, but the idea is that the body knows how to heal itself. So when you start to clear out the built up trauma, diffuse it, then the body takes over, and subconscious and the physical all take over, and the healing process happens on its own. That's one of the things I told the client in our video. I said to him, which I didn't show, I had to cut it out, but that in between sessions, we tell people that they're going to continue processing. So once you start the process of EMDR, the body keeps processing. And when they come back the next week, often they feel completely different. He said he's like at a 0 or a 1 now. That's because we got the trauma to a level where the body was more capable of just taking over and healing. So there's a lot of trauma that we have that your body just heals itself. And so that's part of what EMDR does, is it just gets your body more capable of doing the work it's supposed to do. It's kind of pretty amazing. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. It's after 12:15, so I think we're supposed to stop now. Are we, or is it 12:30? 11:15, 12:30. Oh, I think we have
about 15 more minutes.
Oh, we have 15 more minutes. Okay, well.
There is another session back to this, though.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Carolyn. Thank you. I think, somebody once told me that when you're speaking, like anywhere, like in public or whatever, you have a smile in your voice, they say. But that's how it is when you work with your clients. You want to be kind and caring and nurturing. This because the relationship itself is very important. And what people are doing is putting themselves in such a vulnerable place. They want to know that they can trust you. So, it really does help to be kind and caring in your manner with them. Good couch side manner. All right. So if anybody else has more questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Yeah, as you could see with the client, I think you saw basically a little bit of everything, but he got to a place where he was able to let go of and process the distressing feelings and start to have more positive thoughts and images come up and body sensations. And, he just really healed his trauma, which was amazing. So EMDR, there's EMDR training. There's a question Melanie asked about EMDR certification. So there's EMDR training. It's level 1 and level 2. There are 2 3-day weekends with requirements of supervision in between and seeing a certain number of clients in between the sessions and then after. So then you're just EMDR trained, and then you have to have a lot more supervision, and you can do it as part individually or in part of a group to get certified. So that's just about more supervision and more hours doing EMDR with clients. And for me, it took about a year after I got my trainings to do the process of getting certified. And it's not a hard process, and you learn a lot in the process of doing it. So EMDR, I'm not sure where people are, but the EMDRIA website has a list of all the really good trainings that are all over. Right now, you can get trainings anywhere because they're all virtual. So there's the EMDR. Thank you. Right. Yeah, there's the basic training schedule. So that Justin just put up there in the chat. I would say to look there and to see what works best for you. I got my training at EMDR HAP, Humanitarian Assistance Program. I'm not sure if that's everywhere. I think it might be. And that's like if you work at a non-for-profit agency, they have specific trainings for people, and it's a lot less expensive. But there's a lot of private institutes and private just practitioners who do EMDR level trainings. You just have to be, trained to be a trainer, which I haven't done. I'm a consultant. I can consult with people on their work, and that goes toward their certification. But that's another whole level. So there's a lot of different levels. But after you do your first training, your first 3-day training, you can start doing EMDR, and you just have to get supervision, and it's really great. So I recommend, if you really love kind of going deep and doing that kind of trauma work, it's really good. I'll just keep talking since we have a couple more minutes. But with EMDR and any kind of trauma work, what we do is we look at traditional traumas, the big T traumas, like sexual abuse, physical abuse, major car accidents, or natural disasters, or really terrible disasters that happen as the big T traumas. And then there's the relational traumas, or some of those go in the big T, but some of them go in the little T. Like, let's say your parents get divorced. That's what we call little T trauma. The pandemic is probably big T trauma. But we look at and we work with all of that. So there's a lot of relational trauma that people have because of because of just your parents are fighting, or you get bullied. People get bullied in school and they don't have anyone to process it with. If you have a surgery or an accident as a child, that could be a trauma. TFCBT is really a good kind of therapy for working with trauma. The thing, just since I do EMDR, what I find is that anything that's not really tapping into the body and getting those body expressed memories resolved, you're working more with the cognitive and emotional. But the bilateral stimulation helps to resolve trauma much more effectively than any kind of cognitive kind of therapy. The somatic therapies are good too. Somatic processing is also very good. I do a lot of work with substance abuse. There's protocols that really help people with reducing barriers to getting treatment, or like to joining AA meetings, or getting support systems developed, or also kind of reframing what the substance does for them. It helps to strip away the illusions of why it's so amazing, or what it really means to them, like what got them started in the first place, and get to a more adaptive perspective. So I find it's very helpful with substance abuse. Yeah, and I find that if you're really curious about EMDR, you should try it yourself, because I never would have believed. I decided I was going to try a new kind of therapy to do with my clients. I was trying to decide between hypnosis and EMDR. I also trained in doing energy work. So somebody just was saying, "Oh, you've got to do EMDR." So I decided to go take the training, and I did the training, and I found it to be really amazing. But I never would have believed it before I did it. And the next part that really helped me to understand how to be a good EMDR therapist is to do EMDR myself and go through the process to understand what happens when you look at traumatic memories. And that really helps a lot. So I think that, as a therapist, it's really important that you explore your own issues and resolve them, and understand the kind of work you're doing and how it feels to the client, so that you can be better at what you do. I don't do the kind of tapping where you do it, in the meridians. This is different, but I do think that's good work. I think that's EFT. So I mean, that kind of EFT tapping is really calming. It's really amazing. It helps to regulate the nervous system, And I've seen people do really great work with it. This is different because it's bilateral stimulation. And some of the bilateral stimulation is stuff that you can do, like you get bilateral stimulation when you walk. If you're a drummer, if you're drumming, and yeah, okay, and you could go look up David Grand. He's got a lot of different kinds of music. You could just have your clients listen to it because it's very soothing, and it's not going to bring up a lot of trauma. The kinds of music that you would be able to get from him. But if you have a client where you're doing EMDR, they could listen to it in between sessions too. It's just calming, soothing, helps you to process things that you're thinking about. So, yeah. And the thing also is that you never know where things are going to lead to when you do a session with people. What is going to be the thing that's most distressing for them about something? So that's always important to ask before, and not take for granted, and what comes up and how they understand it and interpret the memory or the feeling that they get. It's very personal. So not taking things for granted is really great. Yeah, look up David Grand's music. It's really cool. I don't recommend there's sort of EMDR things that you can try to do. They sell people to do on their own without a therapist. I don't recommend that. So, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. This was really fun. I hope you got a lot out of it. And again, feel free to contact me if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. And enjoy the rest of the conference.